anything where a company or organization truly wants to connect with its human audience, they will almost always use humans, because
Yes.
the way we talk, the idiosyncrasies, the pauses, these kind of things, it would take you hours to do that, to manipulate an AI generator to get it to sound human. And we have very good perception of what
Yeah.
is real and what is not. Even the best ones I've heard, people can still tell it's not human.
Welcome to Storytelling for Engagement, the podcast where we talk about all things creative and content related to make your story unforgettable. I'm your host, Miranda O'Connor from The Art of Storytelling, and I'm excited to start this storytelling journey with you.
So I started doing voiceovers in 2016. Before that, I was in sales and marketing and consumer goods for 24 years. I grew up in Winnipeg, Manitoba, moved to Toronto, then London, Ontario, then back to Toronto.
So David, tell us, how did you get into the voice industry?
I was always a rambunctious kid, and I did some strange things in my voice when I was a young kid. Used to love watching Saturday morning cartoons, but I didn't do anything with it. I went to school, university, had a professor say, "Oh, you've got a good baritone voice. You should do radio." And I'm like, okay, I'm 19 years old, and this is pre-internet, so early 90s. And I thought, well, I don't know. I ended up moving to London, Ontario, like I said, for a job. Found a studio, and the owner says, "Oh, we mostly do corporate videos, and we bring a gentleman in who went to Juilliard." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And this is back when, pre-internet, so there wasn't that many types of genres, and if you needed a voiceover, it was a union talent. It was in a studio. It was expensive. Blah blah blah. So I said, "Okay, thanks, goodbye. I'm going to go on with my life in sales and marketing." So fast forward to 2016. My daughter was in acting classes, and I was let go from my last job I was at. And I thought, well, either I can look for another job that's going to take me, 60 hours a week and I'll be miserable at, or as the voice acting coach, my daughter said to me, "Hey, you got a good voice. Have you thought about doing radio or doing a voiceover?" I thought, what's voiceover? So I did what everybody else does. I Googled voiceover. And so I thought, well, instead of looking for a high paying job or, stressful job, I'll do this. And I took my severance and savings and said, okay, I'm going to go full throttle. Took acting lessons from him, went through the whole Second City improv program, which I highly, highly, highly recommend improv training for anybody. Doesn't matter if you're in performance or not, because it gets you out of your head.
Yeah.
And pushed the boulder up a hill, got training, took every class I could find, got professionally made demos, set up my own website. And because I didn't have that acting experience, but I had the business experience, I went after businesses and joined my local chamber of commerce and, board of trades and whatnot. So that's how I got to here.
Yeah. Okay. So that's so you haven't actually been in it like for your whole career. So that's interesting.
No, just since 2016. Yeah.
Right. So what kind of training does a voice actor do? I mean, you said it's like any other acting. You don't just get there and have this voice and know how to use it, right? So what is the training like?
So just to dispel that first sort of tidbit, anytime somebody says to you, "Oh, you've got a great voice, you should do voiceovers." No, this here, that's just a tool. If you don't know how to use it, or whatever. And you clearly said it, voice acting. If you're an on-screen actor or on stage, you have your body, your physicality, you have the scenes, the sets, you have all this stuff to inform the audience. When it's just your voice, you have to be a better actor to convey the emotion. And you're trying to elicit an emotional reaction or a behavioral reaction, behavioral change in your audience. So you have to be able to connect. You have to know what you're saying and who you're saying it to and why you're saying all that kind of stuff. So all that background is more critical than anything else. And obviously having quality studios and all that stuff. So I hope that answered the question.
Yeah. So what is the training? I know you said improv, but like how do you make your voice do so many different things?
Well, so it's acting lessons, it's improv classes, then it's voice acting to say, okay, how do you impart this emotion? You have to sort of feel the emotion. Or if you're training on airport security, you have to really understand what you're saying and who
Yeah.
you're talking to, and it ultimately, and more so for a lot of commercial work, they want authenticity. They want the real. They don't want you to talk like this, because
Mhm.
people don't like being sold to. So you have to be able to take a script that is written either salesy or very dry, and you have to warm it up, and that takes a lot of training, a lot of practice to
Yeah.
make it come across. And a lot of times when people see a microphone in front of them, they all of a sudden go, "Hi, I'm trying to tell you something," and it's that's not, and believe it or not, that takes training and practice to
Yeah.
get that out of your natural, like, because people think about how they sound as opposed to how it feels,
Right.
which is a big difference.
Yeah. Okay. And so do you do some interpretation of the script when you get a script? Like, is it just like actual acting where you still have to interpret it and take some direction? So how does that process work?
So that's I like to think of it like a spectrum, right? So if you're talking an animated show or a video game, well, there's a lot of acting involved in that, because you need to inhabit an orc from another dimension, or a rabbit. So you have to really create that character in your mind, like what's
Mhm.
driving that person, what's driving you when you talk,
Yeah.
versus a telephone system messaging, which is very friendly, very professional. You're giving information. You're not trying to be this other character, but
Hmm.
you are a representative of that company. So you still
Hmm.
have to look at the script. Each script is unique,
Yeah.
or each genre is unique, and you have to do your it's called script analysis, and figure out who you're talking. What are you saying? Why are you saying it? Who are you talking to? Who are you? Where are you? The more specific, the specificity matters. So you will talk to your friend at a little league game or a sports game than you would differently to a colleague at a conference, or you're presenting in front of 1,000 people. You
Yeah.
do speak differently. So
Yeah.
once you understand that, you bring that into the delivery.
Yeah. So when I was looking at your website, I saw you had done a Little Caesars ad, and I was like, wow, okay, that's great. And then the next one I watched was about farming in Brazil, and it was
Yeah,
totally different, right?
yeah.
So, I know you have to be authentic, but it's so also not authentic, because you're putting on these different kind of characters. I mean,
Yeah. So
how do
so
you get
here's the thing. The we all do event, like there was an audition, and then there's the actual project. When
it?
you're in a session, let's say with a casting director and the client and whatnot, you do whatever they want. If they say, "Can you give it more energy? Can you give it less energy? More of this, more of that?" Then you are delivering to that expectation.
Mhm.
Um, if you're just doing it on your own, or if you're making your own acting choices, um, it's funny you say that, because my kids sometimes will hear recordings of me and go, "Wow, that doesn't even sound like you."
Yeah.
And part of me goes, "Oh no, it doesn't sound like," because it should be me, like the way I'm talking now. That's how they want, most customers want to hear. But
Yeah.
sometimes they want a more polished read. So
Mhm.
it's almost like a formality spectrum of, talking to a group of neurosurgeons versus like talking to your buddies after a few drinks. You
Right.
have to figure out where that script lies.
Mhm.
And yes, you may sound a little different than the way you normally speak, but you're talking, it's relevant to the audience you're talking to, because at the end of the day, I'm helping whoever has words or message
Mhm.
connect that to the audience, because if
Yeah.
I don't connect it to the audience, I'm not doing my job.
Yeah.
I'm not getting paid for. You might as well just use a robot. Like, it doesn't matter. Connecting, it's all about
Yes.
connection.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the same thing that we do with video. I just feel
Yes,
like it must be so much harder when you don't have those visuals to help you, and you're just trying to get it with the voice. I mean, radio, especially when it's just voice.
it
Yeah.
does help if the client can provide you with visual storyboards, music beds. This is the thing, because if they give you the track and go, "Oh, okay," like a Nike spot, you have that anthemic kind of music, like it motivate, that can inform the read too, because you don't want to have especially since if you're making videos, you don't want the music to be at a ta 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 like a really peppy pace,
Right.
and you're talking at a slower clip. You want everything has to jive, right? So
Mhm.
the more that the person who's hiring you or directing you can inform you, can give you as much details, information, who is the target market, etc., the better the voice actor can give you what
Mhm.
you need.
Yeah. And you do most of your recording at home, right?
Yeah, actually, I'm in my booth right now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So when you're doing it at home, and you don't have anyone listening and watching while you do it, is that why, voice actors give different types of takes so that, the studio can decide which one they want to use?
us, yeah, most times it's in the audition. They'll give a couple of different takes just to show range, but then when it comes to the job, if it's anything more than a couple of minutes, I'll give a 30-second demo of and then they'll say, is this what you're looking for? Is this what you hear in when you think of this, the audio? Is that what you're thinking? And then
Mhm.
I would adjust to what they want. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. What is the longest project that you've had to work on? Like, have you worked on a TV animation, like a 30-minute show?
No, but one of the earliest jobs I had was for the Royal Conservatory of Music, a e-learning course on history of music,
Yeah.
which was maybe a couple of hours long over many different modules. And
Yeah.
that was kind of interesting because it had English, obviously, but French, German, Latin, Italian names and
Right.
phrases I had to pronounce
Yeah.
in that language, not ritonello. It's had to be ritonello. Like I had to, so I had it took a lot of time,
Mhm.
but it was interesting.
Yeah, it must have been an interesting project, like just for you to learn about all the music too, right?
Oh, absolutely. Like most of the things that I do narrate, they do have a certain amount of, oh, this is kind of cool. I'm learning something new.
Mhm.
As I'm narrating, and most of the time I don't pre-read. I read it cold because it's just on the time to, especially audiobook narrators, which I don't do, but they can't necessarily always read the whole book.
Yeah.
But you have to read it
Mhm.
cold and make it sound like, oh, I know what I'm talking about.
Mhm.
I'm an expert in this,
Mhm.
So
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's always interesting to learn from, other people's projects that you're part of. I mean, I learn a lot of everything just from going to my clients and hearing their stories. For me, I know what our unique selling proposition is with the art of storytelling. I know what we do that is special and unique.
sure.
And we have lots of different things that we can visually show for it and talk about it.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to voice, I feel like that's just like it's just one thing. Like, how do you differentiate or how do you sell yourself against your competition?
Well, so it's not really competition per se, and it depends on the type. I look at it because I have a logical left brain or whatever it is. That there's really two different classes of buyers. There's an educated buyer and an uneducated buyer, and it has nothing to do with intelligence, by the way.
Nope.
Educated buyers are somebody like you. You know what you're looking for. You know what quality sounds like. You know what quality costs, etc. And it's a matter of choice. It's you get auditions, you listen to 50 or 100 or whatever it is, and you go, that voice at that particular time and day, and you wanted a male or female or non-binary, whatever the choice may be, that particular voice best suited the project or
Right.
the client decided. It's a choice.
Mm-hmm.
In the uneducated world, it's like, hey, you're a marketing guy. You sitting around a boardroom table going, yeah, we should do a video or whatever. And you don't know what quality sounds like, you don't know what quality sounds like, costs, etc. And you're just going by the sound. Like, oh, he's got a great voice. Oh, that's good. So again, it's mostly choice, but
Mm-hmm.
I have more leeway in marketing myself that way, right?
Right.
Because I can reach out directly to these people. Like, for instance, I have a customer who's an architectural glass manufacturer in Montreal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I do 1 or 2 videos a year. I don't have to audition. It's like, hey, I'm
Wow.
helping him, and that's it, right? So
Yeah.
it's all kinds of customers, but at the bigger level, especially large national commercials, it's all just choice.
Yeah.
But it's also relationships, right? Knowing the right people, having the right relationships with the right people. So
Mm-hmm.
it's more nuanced than just, hey, whoever's the best marketer also wins too. right? Whoever's voice is out there enough. So.
Yeah. And I guess, when you become the voice for a company, they're going to want to keep using the same voice, right? Like you wouldn't want to change that.
I mean, look at yourself. Like if you have a service provider for something, phone systems, whatever, CRM, like once you've selected something, you don't want to go back and revisit it every 6 months or a year.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing for some companies who either from an e-learning standpoint or a telephony standpoint or, even commercials, they want a brand voice. And the more progressive ones will think, oh, we would like to have the same voice in our commercials and our corporate video in our phone system. So there's the audio brand remains the same, right? So there's other holistic reasons to have that. But I mean, I was a buyer and a seller to major retailers. And when you're in with a retailer, you're in. Like they don't want to touch it for a while.
Yeah.
It's expensive to change, right? And it's uncertainty too. Businesses don't like uncertainty.
Yeah. Okay. And so how did you go about building yourself as a voice actor? Like how did you go about finding your first clients? How did it get going,
I had to do the training first, and then while I'm training, I'm talking to other fellow voice actors, and it's unlike the other industries I've been in. This industry and the learning development, they're very similar. It's very like open and caring and supportive, and you can ask questions from 20-year veterans, and they'll give you the time of day. And so that's where I learned a lot of the avenues to go. And because I didn't have that deep acting background when I started, I did what I knew. I knew businesses. So I joined the local chamber of commerce, and I go to every networking event I can go to, and online, email, LinkedIn. I've built up 15,000 connections on LinkedIn. Like my thought was go where my potential clients are and just let them know I'm alive. So it's just follow a path. I like to look at it in terms of I know this is kind of a weird analogy, but the Wizard of Oz, right? Dorothy had to get to the Emerald City. That was her goal. And so, if you know what that is, reverse engineer your yellow brick road. Anything that goes off that path, you avoid. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. But it's also like an onion. There's many different ways actors can build a business in voiceover. It could be through agents, through casting sites, through production company directories, through direct marketing. It's a number of different ways. So there's no one way. I know people who cold call all the time. I hate cold calling, even though I have the improv background. When I get on the phone with somebody, I don't have a script in front of me. What do I say? And if you're socially awkward, like I can be, like it can be very cumbersome. Introvert. I'm also an introvert. So, I think above everything else, having that self-awareness of what works for you. I know some people who post a lot of stuff on social media and video content, and it's great for exposure and whatnot, but you have to want to do that and love it, and whatever method you find, it will work for you. So
and do you find when you listen to like radio or TV or anything, do you notice which voice talent are not the quality one? Because I know you said earlier that there's quality and there's educated buyers, and can you tell from listening which ones are not the quality ones?
Yeah. I mean, most of the cases on TV, they're usually pretty good, although I have heard some cases where like, oh, they chose that voice. Or there was a campaign a few years ago from a national bank in Canada, and the whole push is for authenticity and conversational, right? So this particular spot or series campaign it sounded like, imagine you're lying on a couch in a very prone position, and you're like, bank with us, and you'll like very almost. And I think what happened was they pulled the engineer's sister out of the street and said, okay, go in the booth and just record it because we want something really, really raw. Thankfully, I haven't heard that again. But I always get a kick out of listening to either calling up a company or listening to a commercial. Go, hey, that's Bev, that's Joe, that's Steve, whatever. Like it's interesting to me to hear
Yeah.
their voice is like, hey, good for them,
Yeah. And do you find you could recognize the voices? Because the voices just like, I mean, you sound so different depending on what ad you're in.
Sure. And now I'm listening, so my ears are now tuned for not only the person, the delivery, the audio quality. If I hear any kind of weird anomalies audio wise,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, that engineer missed that. Like,
Yes. Yes, my partner does that when we watch TV. He's always criticizing, what did they do there,
Yeah. Well, it's funny because there was an article yesterday online I saw about Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer, and how he films using IMAX, and those machines are very loud apparently, and the way he mixes the sound makes it sometimes very hard to listen to dialogue.
Right.
And he's doing it on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So, in the theater you don't have subtitles, but at home you're watching it on streaming, you could put subtitles. Oh, okay, that's what they said.
Yeah.
You can always mess up or have poor quality video, but you'll lose the audience if you have bad audio.
Yes, correct.
Right.
Correct.
So.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. Yeah, and I think one of the first movies that did something like that was the Blair Witch Project. I don't know if you remember that, but it was like the video work was awful. It was really just like amateur, and it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, once you can have the audio, people can follow along. So it is really important. I mean, even for us in our videos, like there's absolutely no way we can get away with poor audio,
Sure.
but you could get away with, a little bit of a blur or, a little, unstable shots here or there, but you have to have really good audio to keep up the quality of the production.
Sure. The one example I always use is, imagine watching Jurassic Park with no audio.
Yeah.
There's the stakes, the intensity, it's all gone.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't hear, like you don't feel it's, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So last question, where do you see the AI and the voice generated stuff going? Like, what do you think is going to happen to voice actors or not?
So before I answer that, I have my own thought about AI in general. And it's more of just like a baffled bewilderment question. Of all the things that we can use AI for, from improving our day-to-day processes and email and Excel and all the operational side,
Mm-hmm.
how did we get to the most humanistic pieces of our culture, which is content production, writing, voice, video? Well, to me, that is a weird thing that we took AI right to the most human thing we do.
Yep.
So to answer your question though, I think it's a pendulum, right? There's a mad rush because it's the new shiny tool. I think in the long run, anything that's low value, low risk will go to AI, because it'll be, and I hate to say this term, good enough. It'll be just good enough for that use.
Mm-hmm.
Anything where a company or organization truly wants to connect with its human audience, they will almost always use humans, because the way we talk, the idiosyncrasies, the pauses, these kind of things, it would take you hours to do that, to manipulate an AI generator to get it to sound human. And we have very good perception of what is real and what is not. Even the best ones I've heard, people can still tell it's not human. So, and it's also philosophical. If the company cares more about its humans, and you can tell by whether or not they show up on these 10 best places to work lists and whatnot, they will almost always use humans. Now, there are cases where you're developing an e-learning project and it's a 2-hour turnaround, which is a different issue in itself, and you need a narration for accessibility.
Yeah.
Okay. Or I've actually cloned my voice with a company in England for these large publishing companies that produce, like the news media, like pages and pages every day.
Okay.
They can't afford to hire voice actors to record 50,000 words a day. It would just be, so you have that play button, which is more for accessibility than it is for actual, non-visually impaired. So there is a place for it.
Yeah.
But like I said, if it's something to do with actually you're trying to elicit an emotional response, or you're trying to get them to change their behavior
Hmm.
using AI, your ROI is just not going to be there.
Yeah.
And you can't, and what thing is, you can't talk to the AI and go, yeah, on that third sentence, the fourth word, can you like give it a bit more emotion on that? Good luck. Good luck trying to tell the AI to do that. So
Yeah, yeah, and I agree with you because I think it's like the difference between using stock photography and getting actual real photography, right? Like it's pretty obvious when you go on a
yeah,
website that this company is only using stock photography. This is not authentic. This is not really what they look like. Um, but I think there's also a few areas where just the tool can help. Like for us, it can help along a project because as much as everybody that we interview and film, it's all real and it's all authentic and it's all filmed live.
sure.
But sometimes we just wish we could tweak one word a little bit because we're now editing and trying to match up these sentences, but they said
Yep.
something but they should have really said something else, or they didn't say
Yep.
something. And if we could just take what they said and just create that word afterwards, those kind of little tools I think will help. And I don't think that really hurts anybody, right? It helps everybody.
Exactly. And the difference being that is editing. It's
Yeah.
more like an editing tool. I've seen that. I can't remember the name of the
Yeah.
script or something else
Yeah.
where you can, where, they want to take out the ums, you want to change a word, you're using their, and that is different than a generative AI where you're typing in words or text to speech and you're like, okay, you go to this chat GPT, you say, give me a script for a 90-second video, you drop it into another thing, you get the audio, drop it into another thing, get the video, and boom, it's done.
Mm-hmm.
That to me is a brilliant tool. I wish I use Adobe Audition for my editing. I wish that had the capability where I could say, how many times did I say ectoplasm in this whole script so I
Yeah.
can change it to the right pronunciation and it would highlight. I wish it did that, but it doesn't. But yeah, things like the script where you want to get rid of the ums and ahs, you want to change a word, like you said, they pronounce that wrong. Yeah, that's a great tool. That's a great use of AI
Yeah.
because you're not replacing the human, you're augmenting the human.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And do you think the voice actors have enough protection over their voice right now? Because, there's so many stories coming out about they've taken my voice from one thing and now they're putting it somewhere else. How are the voice actors in Canada, at least, being protected?
it's interesting you said that because I was just at a conference over the weekend in Dallas, and there's an organization called NAVA, National Association of Voice Actors, which is lobbying through various governmental agencies and whatnot to put in restrictions for use, because there are some AI voice generators who will scrape audio and then produce a AI version,
Yep.
but without attributing any kind of royalties.
That's right.
And so I think it's no different than 99% of technology, where the technology is advancing far faster than regulations. Regulations will eventually catch up, hopefully, and have protection, copyright, trademarks, and whatnot. So if somebody records me now, don't, and decides to create a model of my voice, there will be tools that we can check to see if it's an AI generated or it's a natural.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the Wild West right now, and I hope that we have some sanity in there, and governments kick in and say, okay, stop. If you're going to protect content through trademark copyrights and whatnot, then you must do the same thing for the audio side. I kind of look forward to the point where I'm 85 years old and I'm still getting money checks from my voice that's being used for things, right? It's possible, which is an interesting thing that I can't, and I can only record so many hours a day. I can only speak so many hours a day. So the point that it gets to being able to license my voice to an AI generator, longer term, not a bad idea. Problem is, if it's like 2 cents per million words, not a good idea.
Yeah.
And never for broadcast, because
Right.
broadcast is repeated over and over and over. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, maybe there can be a model like stock photography where you can submit your voice, but you have to be able to get the royalties for it. So
yeah, unfortunately, between stock pages where you pay, let's say, $10 a month for unlimited downloads, or which we're seeing right now in the audio sphere is Spotify's $10 a month for unlimited downloads, and you're a major act, you get what, a quarter or like a fraction of a penny per play.
Yes.
Like, they're not making the money on the actual. That's why they're touring so much, and the prices are like out of sight, because they don't make any money on the actual music. They make it on the tours. And somehow between all the Netflixes and the streaming services, they're not compensating the creatives to the point where they should be, or they used to be. So we're seeing this sort of friction now.
Yeah, well, David, this has been great. I hope all the listeners have enjoyed it. I think it was really interesting to hear David's perspective being a voice actor. And David, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
And that concludes another episode of Storytelling for Engagement. If you found value in today's episode, don't forget to like and share, and visit our website at theartofstorytelling.com to learn more about video storytelling content.